Hello and welcome to Microsoft Excel course Advanced. This is part 20 where we will discuss pivot tables and pivot charts. So in this part we will talk about how we can insert a pivot table and a pivot chart to our Excel sheet using the data which we have in hand. Plus we will also see how we can sort and filter the data on the pivot table. Then there'll be, like, we will talk about how we can summarize, how we can change the summary calculation. All this will be covered in part 20. We have our data already in place on our Excel sheet. Now before we start with inserting a pivot table and a chart, let's discuss why do we need a pivot table. Pivot tables are the summarized form of data which we can quickly and easily create. If we compare the pivot table with the data table, pivot tables are flexible and they give you summarized data immediately. You can create a chart on that summarized data. So what exactly is the pivot table? A pivot table is used to summarize, sort, organize, group, count, you name it, and then you can create a total and average on the data stored in a table. Now it allows you to transform the column into rows and rows into column. You can interchange them when you are creating a pivot table. It also allows grouping by any field and use advanced calculations on them. Like I said, you can use various functions on them. You can group, you can count, you can create averages and so on. So we have our data over here and we will insert the pivot table. Before you start with inserting a pivot table, there are certain points which you should keep in mind before you insert a pivot table. First of all, your data should be organized or listed vertically with column titles. Your column should have a title and it should be arranged in a vertical manner. Then there should not be any blank rows in your data. If you have any blank rows, you should take care to remove those delete those blank rows. Next thing which should be kept in mind, you should avoid having extra data in your spreadsheet, like any kind of a total over here or comments over here. Those should be avoided. Why? Because we are trying to create a pivot table and there you will get these things on your on the pivot table itself. There's one more point which should be kept in mind, but it is recommended, it is optional, but it's not necessary that you should have it. Like I'm not having it over here, that you format your data as a table. You can always go to Home tab and under your styles group you can click over here, you can format your data as a table if you want. That can be done. I have not done it. I have just the simple formatting. Reason being, when you add a new data to your table, it is considered as a table. It is taken as a part of the table and pivot table will include and update that information in the table itself. I have just a small example, so I have not inserted a table over here, but if you want, you can insert the data as a table. That can also be done. So let's start with having a pivot table. Click anywhere inside the area or the range where your data is present, like anywhere over here. Go to Insert tab and under Insert you have the tables group. Over here you have pivot tables. Then if you have earlier created any pivot table, then it will be shown over here under recommended table. Then you have under your chart section, you have the pivot chart. So let's insert it. Click on pivot table over here. It will show you the create pivot table dialog box. Here you have a number of options in the form of radio buttons. You have to choose them, like select a table or a range. By default it has, since we were on the current sheet and we have clicked on a cell inside the data range itself, so it has selected a range for me. If not, you can always manually select the data for yourself. If you have an external data source, if data is somewhere else, that you can also check this radio button and choose that particular data from the source. Then you have these two options, whether you want to have the pivot table in this particular sheet itself or you want to go to a new sheet. You can always choose any of these options. I am selecting new worksheet and click on OK. So a new sheet number 7 has been inserted for me. I was earlier working on various other sheets. On the right hand side, you can see the pivot table pane or the small dialog box over here, where you have all these column headings being listed for you. These are the column headings from my selected range of data, and at the bottom you can see these 4 options: filters, rows, values and columns. Whatever data you want in your rows, you can click and drag and put it over here in this particular area which has been allocated for rows. For example, I want the products in the rows, so I can click on products. You can see over here in the row labels you have got the products. If I want the values for these products, I can click on sales and put it over here. Now by default, the values or the summary which you get it as a sum of that particular range which you have selected. We will come to talk about the other options also, how we can have other formulas. Now one more thing I would like to tell you: when you insert a pivot table, you get this pivot table analyze tab over here, and here also you have various options for working with pivot table, and plus you have the design also. So we have got product 1, and the sum of sales for product 1 is 1700 over 17,000 over here. If you can see over here, if I go back to the original source data, here you can see, you can always calculate, you can always have a subtotal and check. Okay, so here we have only one product in the rows. This is only a one variable pivot table. If you want, you can create 2-dimensional pivot table also. I want the month over here in this column. So for product 1, for the month of April, the sales is 1300. You are getting the total over here. For May, June, July and August, September, you are getting the data and plus a grand total over here. So you can also interchange it. You can have something like this. You can place both the fields in the row column itself. You can have the month as a row and product as the column over here. So you can change whichever way you want. Like I said earlier, you can change or transform the columns into rows and rows into columns. You can group by any field or column if you want. You can perform the calculations as well. If you want to remove any of these fields over here, from here you can always click on this particular drop down which we have over here. You can remove, you can have all the products from here. The listing is provided to you, or you can remove any of these if you want. That can also be done. I have removed product 2 from here, so you can see product 2 is no longer visible on the pivot table. So over here you can have filters also. I can place this filter month in the filters. So you have the sum of sales for all these options over here. You can click down on this filter. You can select and remove any product or add any product. You can clear the filter. That can also be done. Let's remove these filter. Let's have a normal table over here, the product and the month over here. So this is a simple pivot table where we have columns and rows and the sum of values. If I right click over here, you have, since you are having a sum of values, you can click on summarize values by right clicking. You can choose summarize values by, you can, by default sum is being selected. you can select count, min, max or product. Let's see about count. So it is showing the count of all the products in the different months plus a grand total. So you can change from here also. Let's have the sum back. Sorting can also be done. Right click where you have the column labels over here, or if you want to sort it on row labels, you have the option of sorting from A to Z, that is present. From here also you can sort from A to Z and the Z to A, like September to April, you have sorted it in the reverse order. So you can sort, you can filter, you can change the summary calculation. By default sum is there, you can change it to a different calculation. Once you are done with your pivot table, let's see how we can create a pivot chart. Our table is in place. Let's click on insert, and this time let's click on pivot chart. So you have the option, the insert chart options open for you. The column chart is here. Let's click on OK. If you want, you can select any other chart of your choice. You can see a chart over here, and this pivot field by pane is already in place. You can place your chart properly over here. Let's arrange it properly so that we can see things clearly. Okay, let me place it over here a little bit. Okay, so we have the products over here. In the x-axis we have the values, on the y-axis we have already discussed how we can work with charts, what are the components of the chart, and various other options which are available with charts in the previous course, that is Excel course for beginners. You can check out the video from there. We have a legend over here. We can change the legend also. So this is a quick way of having a table and the summary table, and with the data present on your pivot table, you can quickly create a chart as well. So if I want, I can remove any of the products from my chart. That can be done. You can see product 5 has been removed. You have the sum of sales over here. You can have all these options. You can remove any field, you can hide anything on the chart. If you want, you can remove from the legend, you can remove these options you have over here. You can do that as well. If I remove September and click on OK, from the legend it has been removed. So you can modify the chart also. You can have different options. Like I said, you can check out the earlier videos. You can format it, you can change it, you can change the values over here. The legend can be changed, the grid lines, the titles, the category labels which are appearing, that can be changed. So there are various options for working with charts as well. So you have a pivot table in place. We have created a chart using the pivot table as well. So we have come to the end of Excel course Advanced. In this part we have discussed pivot table and pivot chart. Hope you all found this course useful. I'll be coming up with more videos on Excel and other topics. So watch out for those videos. Till then, take care and thank you for watching.